The Blind Tony Story, Book 5, Chapter 2. Everything changed. I still lived in the rooming house, paying $30 a week for rent, but everything changed. I bought new clothes, I bought a stereo system, I bought a flute, and I began to enjoy and explore the San Francisco nightlife. I spent a lot of time at a disco called Dance Your Ass Off on the other side of Chinatown. And when they would close, I would frequent the after hours spots in the Fillmore district where the pimps, the players, and the hustlers would sip cognac, smoke weed, sniff cocaine, and exchange war stories. I became especially close to a player pimp named Casino who had a stable of women and several exotic cars. He used to let me drive his antique Bentley, and he became one of my most faithful cocaine customers. The people in the rooming house also bought me a lot of clientele, and I let everybody get a little slice of the pie. I ran into Apollonia's older sister downtown in the Embarcadero Center, and we had lunch together. She was like a digitally enhanced version of Apollonia, and it was very hard not to lust on her. But she was family, and I considered her an older sister. She had changed her name, and she lived not far from me in the rooming house in the Sunset District. I started spending a lot of time at her house. We were both vegetarians at this point, and she would let me use her car whenever I wanted to. She had an Italian Volkswagen, a Carmen Ghia, that we both affectionately called Carmen. She introduced me to a lot of young black professionals, and my circle of friends and clientele kept growing. She introduced me to a young man who was a journalism major from New Jersey who became a TV anchorman. She also introduced me to another young black man who became director of a community college. He and I became especially close, and he eventually gave me a job at the college where I also enrolled in classes. And eventually I became his administrative assistant and was responsible for the wording of all correspondences that left his office. He also was able to upgrade my living quarters, and I moved out of the rooming house. And initially I shared a house with an air traffic controller, a beautiful house. But eventually I got my own place, very beautiful place. Everything just kept increasing and growing. Women were everywhere, every flavor of the rainbow. And I met one of the most beautiful women I had ever seen in my life. And she gave me the claps. Then I met another woman who was more beautiful than her. And she gave me syphilis. And then, as hard as it believes, I eventually met a woman who was more beautiful than the two of them together. Wow. She was a mixture of black, Oriental, and Hispanic. And she gave me the crabs, which I quickly passed on to another beautiful woman before I even knew that I had them. Wow. All that glitters is definitely not gold. I'm just glad that God kept me from catching the HIV virus or AIDS. The gay population is so large in San Francisco that you can't even win an election without their vote. But that also means that there are a lot of women for each straight man. The ratio at this time was about 9 to 1, and I averaged about two sexual liaisons per day. I had access to their cars, their houses, and their finances. But I think that the most embarrassing episode for me sexually was when I brought home a beautiful woman from the club one night who turned out to be a man who claimed to be a woman trapped in a man's body. Wow. He was really something. He had gotten the estrogen shots, and he cried when I told him that he had to go. And he told me that no man had ever turned him down before in his life. He'd had several operations. Wow. He definitely had me fooled. And I wondered how many of my good friends had partaken of that forbidden fruit since he said that no man had ever turned him down. Hmm, I definitely kicked him out. Anyway, Apollonia came to visit her sister, and it was wonderful seeing her again. West Coast women are very beautiful, but they seem kind of superficial and devoid of substance under pressure. East Coast women know how to struggle, and though they're a little more coarse and unrefined than their West Coast counterparts, they usually are at their best under pressure. But just as suddenly as Apollonia came, she was gone, and I didn't realize how much I missed her until I saw her again. Hmm. Dolores became very jealous from the rooming house and possessive, and eventually I had to stop sleeping with her at all, which really pissed her off. And on top of that, I started having an affair with the other woman from the rooming house named Doris. And she did things to me that I had never had done to me before. But she had a boyfriend, and the most I had ever gotten from her was stolen moments. Doris was totally uninhibited. She was Italian. And eventually she came to Atlantic City trying to find me. It was good for both of us that she didn't find me. I still was taking weed to the East Coast regularly, and during one of those trips, Apollonia heard that I was there, and she came to see me. She was as beautiful as ever, and we enjoyed that night together. But at the end of that night, I found myself poised at the crossroads once again. For Apollonia offered me a proposition to totally give up my life, which really was no life at all, and come and become part of hers, which was booming. And I have often wondered over the years what life would have been like if I had only taken her up on that offer. But I didn't. So we went our separate ways once again. Shortly after that time, I heard she had gotten married. Wow, c'est la vie. Bennett, the tennis pro at the rooming house, got me a job at the San Francisco Racket Club, which really put me in contact with the rich and famous and furthered my clientele and my circle of friends. I handed out towels in the locker room and cleaned and mopped the floors and vacuumed the rugs, and, which gave me access to the keys, and I would let some of the touring pros play all night long. Well, a couple of them told me that I was a natural, and I'm sorry that I hadn't picked up a tennis racket earlier in my life. But I started playing every day from that point on. I made some very significant drug deals at that racket club, but everything was done through envelopes left in lockers containing money and requests for product. I, in turn, would leave the product also in lockers. Nothing was ever transacted face to face, but I received several lovely bonuses. Still, I got fired from that club when the ownership changed hands. Everybody except the teaching pros got fired because the new management wanted to make a fresh start. Life was still very good though, and I was able to send Mom and Aunt Janie candy, money, and flowers on Mother's Day. Life was good.